Yeah, he said he's gonna send it to everybody. I said, everybody? Almost everybody.
I got you, man. Hey, Larry, all three of us, we're gonna see how you vote. We're gonna see how you start off voting. You're gonna go there.
So start now? I don't know what my schedule is.
Breakfast coming at 2 for Labor Day. All three of us.
Yeah, I saw that.
Let's call school off already. County went first.
They already have? County already has?
There's only 3 major changes
Kelly.
made so far.
County's already called
Still
off.
gonna be.
Making an
Why are we
announcement
even?
today.
So we can allow the primary.
Seriously?
Yeah. At midnight.
I'm about 10 minutes behind. Or at least 10 minutes.
That is February the 6th.
What's Wednesday?
What time's he gonna get?
That's the, I mean, it's a very nice one.
It's amazing, it's still like 52 or something.
Well, when they run the house,
Is our clock's wrong?
Yes, it is wrong.
We're close.
It's
We're
fine.
just 2 hours.
It's on the dot.
It's just 2 hours late.
It's so snowstorm.
Public hearing called to order. Roll call, please. Is this on? I guess. Roll call, please.
Here.
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 Here. Can you all hear me? Is it on?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Do you hear a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public hearing is on 2 ordinances. First, this is the first reading. Ordinance number 637, the zoning ordinance amendments. This is the private access easements and public right-of-ways. Is anyone here would like to speak on that? Okay, second ordinance is number 638. This is rezoning B2 to R2. This is the North Charles G. Severs Boulevard at Alpine Drive. Anyone would like to speak on that? Hear a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So moved.
Public hearing's adjourned. Call to order regular meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Here.
Councilman McBride?
Here.
Councilman Harris?
Here.
Councilman Stamey?
Here.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Here.
Councilman Farris?
Here.
Mayor Burton?
Here. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The prayer this evening will be given by Dr. McBride. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for the opportunity you've given us to serve our community. And dear God, I thank you for the folks who are employees and staff and administration here at the city. I pray for wisdom for them each and every day as they carry out their duties. I pray that you'd be with us as a council tonight, that we would do those things that are pleasing to you. Father, give us wisdom to make those decisions that we need to make. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Jim. Do I hear a motion for the review and approval of minutes of the previous meeting dated December 14th, 2018?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This time we'll recognize our citizens with any grievance or praise at this time. Yes, ma'am. Please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Burnett. I'm with ASAP of Anderson. We cover all of Anderson County, including Clinton. Since it's a new year, I'm just going to try to briefly remind everyone about some things that we have always offered and continue to offer through ASAP, and then a few new things that we're going to do this year as well. So just a reminder, we're still always offering lock boxes to the community and to community members. We work with organizations on that to lock up your medications, so we're hopefully getting a big shipment in soon. We're also doing something a little bit new this year around opioid prescription drug prevention, particularly with a program called Generation RX. We're implementing that hopefully in all of the high schools and middle schools in the county, and we've already started on that, and then we're also looking at elementary schools as well, getting some of those already started, but going through the rest of the year to offer that program to our students. We still offer responsible alcohol sales classes for any vendors in the community that are selling alcohol, particularly those beer vendors that aren't required to do the classes through the TABC. So that's still something that we try to offer. We also still offer Narcan training for community members. That's the Narcan or naloxone to reverse an overdose. And then we just got our Pride survey results back from the surveys that we do every 2 years for students, 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. We're still seeing a steady decline in alcohol and tobacco use, which is always good. We already had a pretty low percentage of prescription drug misuse reported, and that is staying steady but still low. We've seen a doubling in use of e-cigarette and vaping devices. So that's one of the biggest things. We've seen it double from 2016 to 2018, and we have a new strategic plan that we're working on implementing across the county and the community. And then last but not least, we have our Ally of the Year campaign coming up this year, and you guys have 2 local community members who are participating as allies this year. Rick Meredith with the Anderson County Chamber of Commerce, and then Sam Turner, the manager over at the Food City here in Clinton. So that starts on February 1st, goes through February 25th, and we'll kick that off into this week for the voting and stuff. So
Great.
that's about
Any
it.
questions for Jennifer?
How do you vote for Sam?
How do you vote? We'll have for Sam in particular, we'll have a link on our website, or you can bring cash, check, et cetera, to our ASAP office as well, or mail. We'll take it any way you want to.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. Well, we're getting into the exciting part of our agenda, our audit report presentation. Trying to build it up as well as I can. I said the best presentation I've heard was about 2 or 3 minutes. It was fantastic.
Boy, put me under some pressure there, Scott. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for selecting us as your auditors again. And we have a good working relationship, I think, with Roger and Gail, and they do a good job. And I think as a body that governs the city's finances and operations, you should know that you've got a good staff at hand, and we appreciate all their hard work as well. You got 2 packets. One is the big, thick book. It's the CAFR. It's got all the financial statements required by Governmental Accounting Standards Board, State of Tennessee, and then there's a second report, which is the stapled one, and that's kind of a report from us to the board and to management, and it covers required communications that we're supposed to reiterate each year. The main thing we have in the small report, I'll just point out one thing that's significant for this year, and it'll also be in the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, is on page 1 toward the bottom. There was an adoption of a new GASB accounting standard number 75. That's related to OPEB or other post-employment benefits. And that was required to be implemented for fiscal year 18. And basically that standard changes the way the accounting and disclosures are reported to be more in line with what the pensions changed 4 or 5 years ago. So they're very similar as far as a lot of similar wording and similar presentation, but to use the same methodology and approach that pensions have been using the last 4 years. That was a big change. But the page 1 and page 2 those are the required items we're supposed to communicate every year, and there are no negative issues or disagreements with management or things that we need to bring to your attention that would be of concern. So it's all pretty positive, I think. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what's required. We got a couple other schedules in that same thing. That in the back is a copy of the management rep letter that Gail and Roger and Kelly over here signs for the schools, and that's required by professional standards as well. So I'll just hit the highlights real quick on your comprehensive annual financial report. For the second year in a row through fiscal year 17, the city received the GFOA Award for Certificate of Excellence, which is on page 5. That's a professional association that recognizes entities that go above and beyond what's required by GASB to meet their standards of financial reporting and disclosures. And in Tennessee, there's only about 60 entities that get that certificate out of about 600 that are eligible. So you're in the top 10% of entities across the whole state that get this award. That's something to be proud of. It's something that took a while for Gail to work toward, but she got there a couple of years ago, and we anticipate 18 will get the award as well. So that's a nice positive attribute to have. Our report's on page 8 through 10. The audit report, that covers the financial statements. And on page 9, there's a sort of toward the top of the page, there's a paragraph that says opinions. And that basically states that our audit, we found that the financial statements were fairly stated in accordance with GAAP. And that's a clean or unmodified accountant's report. That's the best you can get. And below that paragraph, we emphasize the new adoption of GASB statement number 75 under the emphasis of matter paragraph right below that. The MD&A is on page 11 through 21. That's required. Some of that's boilerplate required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, but it is pretty straightforward. It's a summary basically of the rest of the report. So if you don't want to read all, what do we got here, 200 pages almost, 150 pages, you can read those 10 pages and get a very good sense of how the city did for the past fiscal year. We'll skip right to the major funds. On page 29 and 30 is your actual versus budget for the two major funds of the city, which is the general fund and the school's general purpose school fund. And the general fund ended the year with a $4.5 million unassigned fund balance, which is a very healthy 37% of current year expenditures. That's above your criteria, your policy of minimum of 25%. And then the general purpose school fund ended the year with $3.6 million unassigned fund balance, which is a very healthy 45% of current year expenditures. So that's pretty strong financially. So that's something to be good, thankful for. The rest of the notes, we've got the new GASB 75, which is disclosed on page 65 through 66, and again on page 86 to 100, just to point that out. And what that measurement, that new focus on the measurement, now this doesn't apply to your fund statements. This rolls up to the very front of the report, page 11 and 12. It's the government-wide full accrual accounting where you put depreciation and long-term debt, and more like a for-profit accounting, if you will, rather than the fund accounting, which is your modified accrual. And the Liability, at the beginning of the year, when we remeasured it for the 3 OPEB plans, was 1.5 million, and through the current year, ended up being 1.7 at the end of the year. So that covers the 3. The city has 1 OPEB plan that you started this year, and then the Board of Education has 2 through the state that they participate in. So that includes all 3. And then all the pension plans, the cities and the Board of Education pension plans are well-funded. That's highlighted in the required supplementary information section of page 105 to 113. And the city's TCRS plan was 102% funded. The Board of Education's new teacher hybrid plan was 126% funded. And the Board of Education's TCRS legacy plan, which is now closed to new participants, is 100% funded. So those are in good shape. And then toward the back, we have page 158 to 164 are our separate, the first report, we call it Governmental Accounting Office Yellow Book Report. Talks about complying with general laws and regulations and internal controls, and we had no findings. And then the second report is our single audit report that covers the programs that we tested, the federal grant programs, and we tested the special education programs, and we gave a unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on those. So again, no findings there as well. Did I make 5 minutes? No.
Just right.
Did I really?
That's right.
Did I do was that 5 minutes? 7 minutes.
Close enough. Any questions?
So there's a lot of information and so forth, but I think my question is, based on the income of this fiscal year and based on the expenditures of this fiscal year, did we take more in than we spent, or did we spend about what we took in, or?
That'd
I
be
mean,
on
that's
page
a very
29. Primarily, that'd
Is
be on
that
page 29 and
page
30.
Okay,
That would show the actual versus budget
right,
comparison of the 2 main funds, which is the general fund and the general purpose school fund. So,
If you look at the
Yeah.
general fund there, the net change in fund balance,
yes,
598,793. But now keep in mind,
That's what I thought.
including 550,000 of note proceeds. So even though it's revenue that we didn't spend,
it's borrowed money that.
right,
Okay.
so
So if you-
I would say we broke even this year.
So like as most households or homeowners would look at it, pretty close to, we didn't spend more than we took in.
No,
That's good. Did a good job budgeting, but we also did a good job spending. Okay.
Any other questions? Anything that sticks out that we should kind of keep an eye on, or?
just nice and boring. It's the way I like it. I think you do too.
Love it. It didn't
Yeah.
used to be that way.
No, you don't want drama.
No. Well, appreciate you
Thank you.
all. Gail, as always, you and your staff doing a great job. Department heads, thank you all. Of course, Roger.
That's what I
Just
thought
keep
that
on
was.
keeping on. So,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Communications from the mayor. I have a few things. First of all, Roger and I we were a part of a meeting last Friday with the Joe Hollingsworth Group, Hollingsworth Foundation, and his team of people, and also with TVA representatives there, talking about the park that Joe wants to do there in South Clinton. That's going to be many, many acres. I don't want to steal any thunder, but it's a very unique plan, and it's kind of exciting. It's different from any other park. It's focused a lot of passive areas, a lot of walking trails, and a lot of bike trails, which is really unique. It could be up to 15 miles in bike trails, which would put us on the national map for those people like Rob rides some and Roger's ridden some. There's a lot of them out there. The only concern that I brought up and Roger agreed with too is the part that's fly ash, which is really a very small percentage of the park. And we had some discussion, and we all know that Kingston really changed the perception on fly ash, even though it's a different process, it's still fly ash. And what we wanted to do, and I'm not speaking for council, but I think in general, I think the council agrees with what we're talking about, is we just need to make sure that the fly ash part is safe. Even if it's a passive, if the ground's not going to be disturbed, it's still encapsulated. But we need a higher body to say this is safe for our citizens and for our kids. So we're going to go through TDEC, which is really what I kind of interpret as the state's EPA, to get an opinion, so we can move forward or not move forward on this project that Joe wants to do, at his cost, by the way. So what I'm asking is, if someone can have a motion, bring up a motion to approve Roger to send a letter to TDEC, just to get, lack of a better word, opinion as far as the safety of that area.
What I'd like to do is ask them to come out and actually re-inspect the site, whether that be samples, soil samples, water samples, whatever it may be, ensure that the site is safe to build. And I think the plan is to keep it a green space, actually not to build on it and not to disturb it, but even with that in mind, let TDEC, whether they need to use the EPA or whomever, let them sign off on it and assure us that the site is safe for public use. And I think that's what the letter will say, and we'll ask them to come out and do that.
Okay.
Roger, you say re-inspect. When was it first?
To my understanding, back when Mr. Hollingsworth had the permit to actually fill, my understanding it was at one time a bowl, and that it was actually filled in, then capped off with 4 or 5 feet of soil. That when the permit was closed out, that it was actually inspected then and gave a clean bill to close out the permit. So at that time, I think it was in 07, 08 time frame. So at that time, it was given a clean bill. It's been 10, 12 years ago, so.
So do I hear a motion to allow Roger to do this?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, Mayor, I think it's for the best interest of Mr. Hollingsworth and the city and everybody that ever plays there, does any recreation at all. I think everybody has a better feeling of it. It's just an excellent, Mr. Howe, your past of recreation, of what you've seen on your drawings. How do you see that blending in with the people of Clinton?
Well, I think it'd be great. I mean, the preliminary plans was what they showed us the other day would be, very, very much fit in with some of the things we've got with the river, the use of the rolling that we already have, that once the bridge is done, that we hope to bring back some of the schools that we had in the past. Like I said, it's going to be, probably a majority of the parks will be passive recreation with kayaking, as the mayor said, hiking, biking trails, many miles of that. It's going to has a lot of green space in it. I think they called it, turning a brown field into a green field in the fly ash area, not really disturbing it. So I think a lot of that was positive. It could definitely, be a boost to our economy even. We've got some potential new developments in housing getting ready to hopefully start. So hopefully, it could be definitely a positive. Mr. Hollingsworth has set up a foundation that's going to fund this project. That's going to actually also take care of the maintenance of it. So it's not going to be a cost to the city. So that's a positive also. So I think everything, once everybody gets ahead of the issue with the fly ash, it could be a positive.
It's really incredible how big this is. I didn't realize there's a large piece of land behind what Joe owns, that's TVA, that's in itself is almost 260 acres. I think he's looking more for the bike trails back in there, but you talking about the total park, it could be close to 400 acres. I mean, it'd be huge.
I think they're right now at around 170, but they're asking some TVA land.
Well, that's the TVA and I was talking, the two islands.
That they're looking at, and TVA is about recreation and some of their land use. I used the example, part of Lakefront Park, we own part of it, and the other part is actually TVA land that we're the permanent, it's deemed for recreation, and we're the permanent land managers of the other half of the Lakefront Park. And
I know the foundation is going to hold a couple of workshops. I think one one definitely on site, and maybe one somewhere else at the JA building maybe. So they want, I say he, but it's really the foundation, they want public input, they want to inform and educate what's going to be done there. And that's going to start pretty soon, probably in the next 4 to 8 weeks, they're going to start doing that.
I think once we get the report back from TDAC.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a perfect example of private citizens and private individuals, private enterprise stepping in and helping with the development and the vision that a lot of us have for the city. You know, as city government, we can do our part, but we can only do our part. We can't do private development's part. So I think as long as, I think it's a good sign. I think that it's, we're going to be good partners with responsible individuals that want to be a positive influence on our community. And I've talked to the gentleman that is head of the foundation, and you know, I could see maybe some of that land that the city owns.
Right.
You know, if this park becomes very successful, it doesn't take a great imagination to envision our park, you know, maybe being a step in there and utilizing it. So.
And we've actually applied for a couple of grants for that 17 acres. We've looked at some Blue Cross Blue Shield grants. We've actually applied for some money there. We're in the process. The Randy Boyd Foundation Dog Park grant that came out last week, Gail, and we've downloaded that application, so we'll be applying for it. And of course, we've already opened up Riverview Road to give better access off Carden Farm Road into that 17 acres. So you're exactly right. It could actually, that could tie into it also. And we're planning on the same type of deal there, kind of a low impact, open space type for that 17 acres. And once again, too, we want to expand the rowing part with possibly some better dockage there on that side also.
I think it is offering families an opportunity, a lifestyle opportunity. You know, people want to get out, and they want to be outdoors, and we have this beautiful river, and we'll be able to fully access it and fully, you know, develop that resource for the betterment of our community. And I think for a lot of people, I would want them to know that this council and city leadership is really working to advance growth in a positive way, in a thoughtful way, in an intentional way. So I think it's a lot of times, I don't think sometimes our citizens or our community understands what all behind the scenes is going on from the city staff standpoint. That, and I also want to commend Rick Meredith, and I know that the Chamber's done a great job. So it's just I think all around a great community win.
Well, we got a good river, and we don't utilize it enough. Perfect example, we get a phone call late last week. The Tennessee rowing team, something happened to their practice facility, and even though we've got all the bridge construction going on, they're going to temporarily use our boathouse and use the upstream part of the river to do their spring training, which spring training starts right now for them. They moved their boats into the boathouse this Saturday, and they're going to start practice here soon, just rowing upstream away from the bridge.
Yeah. Clinton, Tennessee, home
Yeah.
of the UT Vols.
There you go.
That's right, that's right.
Roger, have we ever thought about connecting with the city of Oak Ridge and getting those greenways potentially connected?
Actually, it's something that Mayor Frank, Mark Watson, and I have talked about that at some point that you know, we'd like to get together. Of course, it would have to be a venture between Oak Ridge County and city because it would involve all three, but it would be, you know, it would be a fantastic goal to do that at some point.
If you look at ours, you know, when we finish the bridge, when TDOT finishes the bridge, then we're going to be able to tie in our existing walking trail over the bridge to our 17 acres to the Hollingsworth Park, but also on the backside and go take it up Eagle Bend to J.C. Park. So realistically, we could have maybe 12 plus miles of walking trail available for our little city.
And we are
that's
going to
pretty
meet
good.
with TDOT, myself, and the chamber, and talk to them a little bit about the bridge construction. Right now, the bike lanes does not have any protective barriers on it, so we'll go ask them, and we did some preliminary talk with them about maybe shifting the bike lane to just one sign and putting a protective barrier there, so we would have a protective bike lane. And maybe even if they just had to do that on one side.
And a much
we think-
wider back.
Yeah, it'd be
lane, too.
wider and with a protective barrier between traffic and the bike.
Anything else? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Couple of notes, couple of appointees I need to appoint. Board and committee appointments. I'd like to place on the Community Action Board, Community Action Commission. It's a one-year term, and I'd like to appoint Lincoln Barton to that, term ending December 31st, 2019. Hear a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Also, with our Anderson County Economic Development Association, that we have some duplications, like Rick Meredith is on the city board representative, and he's on the chamber now, so he has his own seat at the table, so to speak. So I was just able to free him up. And I would like to appoint Alan Tadlock to a 4-year appointment, term ending November 30th, 2025. Hear a motion for approval.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And last but not least, some events that's occurring downtown Market Street in 2019. We had the 7th Annual Irish Stroll and Sale, which is March 15th and 16th. Friday nights, starting here pretty soon, starting in April. It's going to run through September. So you're going to have the food trucks, the local artisans, and the stores are going to open later during those times. And these events are sponsored by the historic Downtown Clinton Merchants Association. The new downtown businesses, I've noticed there's quite a bit here the last few months, is the Spindle Tree, which is at 301 Market Street. I love the exterior of the building. It really adds to it. It really updates downtown. And they do photography and event venue. The Stair Agency, you like this one, Rob. This is for talent agency. So this could be your dream come true right here. It's at 308 Market Street. So if you feel like you have some talent, go see, I think it's Adam, will take care of you. The other one's at Hoots Corner. That's at 362 Market Street, and that's antiques and vintage. The Clinch Valley CrossFit Gym is at 378 Market Street. Is that the old Clinton Glass? Yes. Okay. Is that right at the corner there? Okay. And is that open? March. This is coming in March? Okay. So that's the Clinch Valley CrossFit Gym. And the last but not least, the Mystic Orb, and that's 405 Cullum Street, and that's going to be a consignment store. So welcome the new vendors, and I wish you all the success in the world.
Mayor, we got a new business, Genesis Title Company.
That's right.
Kathy Brown.
Yep, I used them quite a bit. I think we're having a grand opening.
Friday at 3.
Friday at 3. Thank you, Miss Chamber. Friday at 3 o'clock at the, it's right next to Edward Jones and right next to City Hall. So that's all I have. Committee reports, City School Board report. Ms. Johnson?
Good evening. So I guess the news has traveled. If you didn't hear the kids screaming about 5 o'clock this afternoon, Clinton City Schools is closed tomorrow due to the predicted inclement weather. So I've already gotten some texts from parents saying that there was lots of dancing and screaming and happiness going on in their house due to that news. So now we just hope that like something comes tomorrow to justify me closing that early. So we shall see.
That was the teachers dancing and screaming.
Yeah.
Teachers were dancing too. Teachers were dancing too. And in fact, one of them said, "So what about Wednesday?" And I was like, "Well, can we just get through Tuesday first, please?" So, but anyway, schools will be closed tomorrow due to inclement weather. Also, I want to give a big shout out, just listening to the auditors give the report, very pleased with the results on both the city end and the school end. But really, the brainchild behind that, as much as I like to give him a hard time, and it's really paining me to a great degree to give him a shout out tonight, but Scott Ray does an excellent job with our finances, and just keeps a close eye on it, very knowledgeable about what he does, and he is certainly an asset to have with us at Clinton City Schools. So I really appreciate all that you did to make sure that we ended up with a nice, clean audit this year. I do want to give a shout out to our special education team. They are actually on their way this evening to Nashville to a Partners in Education conference this week, where they will be recognized as one of 6 districts across the state to receive what is called we were named as an exemplary access district. And so for the past 2 years, we participated in what's called a SPDIG grant that focused on differentiation for kids and just really improving the quality of instruction for students across the board. And so out of all the districts that participated in this grant, 6 districts across the state received that exemplary status. So they will be recognized on 2 different occasions at the PI conference in Nashville. So want to give them a big shout out for their work that they did, and then they also redelivered that information to our regular education teachers, and that has been a big part of our instructional work that we've done in Clinton City Schools over the past 2 years, and I think we've seen lots of success from it. Wanted to kind of give you a facilities update of what are some things that occurred during the 2 weeks that we shut down over Christmas holidays. While students and teachers weren't there, our wonderful maintenance team worked endless hours to try to get lots of projects knocked out while the buildings were empty. A few of the things that we did is we did install a new hot water heater in Clinton Elementary School kitchen. That was an emergency replacement, but we took care of that over the break. We installed on the red hallway, which is the oldest part of North Clinton Elementary, replaced all the countertops in those classrooms. They were in dire need of repair, so we replaced those. We painted a portion of the west wing at Clinton Elementary School. We put in new ceiling tile in a portion of Clinton Elementary School. And then we added new LED lighting in one of the hallways at Clinton Elementary School and in 2 classrooms as a pilot test. But it is new up-to-date lighting where the lights actually function on 2/3 less energy than what the current lighting that we have in the classrooms. And so it's very, very bright in there. And in fact, they function most of the day with half of the lights on. The lights are so bright. But we're going to watch and see how that does, and we anticipate spreading that to all of the classrooms across the system, just doing a few at a time so that we can pay cash for that project. A couple of other things, we've been really busy looking at mid-year data. To this year and T and Ready accountability, we will be held accountable for ELA, or English Language Arts and Math. Science and Social Studies, due to standard changes, will not be a part of our accountability protocol for this year. So we are busy looking at that mid-year data and making adjustments as needed. And then at the beginning of March, you will see Blaze take on a new little activity, but we are going to have Blaze Bowlers, and so we are going to have a bowling team at Clinton City Schools. And those of you, I think most of you know Tammy Thatcher, who was our secretary at Clinton Elementary School for many years. We did not know that she was a quality bowler when she was in high school, and actually went to the state level to compete. And so she is coming back with us, and so she is going to, for 5th and 6th graders, she is going to be doing a bowling team March and April. And then finally, just wanted to let you know, just as politics play a big part of education at the state level, John Reagan, our representative, has been named as the chairperson for the Education Committee. There's several education committees, but he is the chairperson for Education K through 12 committee. So we will be working closely with him to hopefully get some support on some big education issues that will be popping up this year. But other than that, we're just moving and grooving, hoping to survive the winter months. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Kelly?
How many snow days do you get at the beginning of the year?
We work in 10. So we attend school for 30 minutes extra a day, and that buys us 15 minutes extra in the morning and 15 minutes extra in the afternoon. And then we're able to stockpile those days, and that gives you 13 additional days in your calendar. 3 of those we use for teacher professional development, and then 10 we save for inclement weather. So this will be the second one tomorrow. We used one at the beginning of December with some predictions, and so we'll have 8 left after tomorrow.
Anything else? Kelly, what's Representative Reagan's stance on the school vouchers?
He, at one point when they came up a few years ago, he was leaning towards being more pro-voucher. And what some of the conversations that we have held with him is I think his viewpoint is helping failing districts, and we need to do something to help failing districts. And in the conversations that I've had with him, he feels like that all 3 school systems in Anderson County are quality, which they are. We are very lucky in Anderson County, and I don't think that he realizes the impact that it would also have on effective school districts as well. And so we continue to hold that conversation with him to get him to understand how damaging that would be to all 3 of our school systems in our county.
Okay. Anything else? Thoughts and prayers to you and Sam and your mom and the rest of the family. I
Thank
hope he's
you.
getting stronger and better every day.
He
Just tell
is
him-
at home doing fairly well. I think we're just going to have to limit the UT basketball games
Oh, no.
because during the
That goes out to a lot
UT
of
Vanderbilt
people.
game, his chest pains came back.
Yeah.
So we're gonna not let him watch UT basketball
Understand.
anymore.
Thanks, Kelly. Mr. Ray,
How many minutes do I have for you?
you're fine, buddy.
All right. Well, after receiving some praise, my head's a little large. You should have in the package your December financial statement. There's not really anything exciting to say about that. It's not for your approval, just for your acceptance. I'd offer to answer any questions that you have. Any of the ratios that may look odd will be placed in line with the forthcoming budget amendment. So.
Any questions for Scott?
I was reading the Clinton Courier, and I saw an action shot of one Scott Ray in a heated basketball game. And my question to you is, how many points did you score and did you win?
I can answer that.
I had a perfect game, and I didn't win.
Baseball? Were you pitching?
children, that was the important part.
Didn't break any noses this year. Last year, can't say that.
So the
But
perfect
it-
would be 0 for 0?
0.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just happy if I can hit the backboard. That's how bad I am at that game.
did do a mean cha-cha slide at halftime, though.
Yeah.
Well, it looked like you guys were having fun.
It
and
was.
I congratulate the Courier for that coverage. It was enjoyable.
I think we should probably strive to have some city council folks on that basketball game for next year.
Hatmaker's your man.
We were invited.
Well,
were
I'm
invited.
recruiting, trust me. As bad as I am, I need some help.
So you have a budget amendment?
You do have a budget amendment. It's the first budget amendment. My memo summarizes the significant changes within the budget amendment. We did increase for $55,000 in expenditures funded by donations and other revenues and fees for our Blaze Well-Rounded program. The majority of that is coaching salaries and equipment like the new scoreboards, backboards, things like that. And that includes all Blaze Well-Rounded activities, not just basketball. It's the bowling, the cross-country, some of the educational activities that are, less athletic in nature are included within that. We increased appropriations for medical personnel, just funded by various line items for salaries and benefits, because we did have an extra nurse this year compared to prior years. Increased appropriations for a school secretary, and again, funding that with other line item reductions. Our largest increase in expenditures is for the building improvements and cameras. That's funded by a Safe Schools grant and increase in revenues. The budget amendment is we still have a balanced budget. Anticipated revenues equal anticipated expenditures. I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you have on budget amendment number 1.
Any questions for Scott?
At the school board meeting, you talked about the camera.
Yes, sir.
Did you guys vote that in to do that, or is that up for discussion, or?
We did. We'll be installing all new high-definition wireless cameras within all 3 of the schools. And we'll be doing the updated servers to where we will be able to watch the cameras from our cell phones, but but also the police department will be able to access all of our cameras from their mobile devices as well. But we have increased the coverage at all 3 schools to where we will have coverage basically on every area, interior and exterior, with our new camera system.
Well, I know you had a walkthrough with Chief Beckert and his staff several times. Was there some areas of concern at any of the schools? Or was just the visibility of the cameras not real good?
Well, the cameras were analog cameras, and so it was blurry, and when you went to zoom in, it really wasn't giving you the clarity that you needed to
Right.
make identifications. But then our exterior areas are not covered like they need to be, and there's some areas within the school that we needed to increase coverage. And this will do that through this, and they're anticipating starting, we have to run new Cat 6 cables throughout the whole, throughout all 3 buildings, and so they're gonna start that cabling on spring break.
Great. Anything else?
No, sir.
Do I hear a motion for approval of budget amendment number 1?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Yes.
Councilman McBride?
Yes.
Councilman Harrell?
Yes.
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Yes.
Councilman Sims?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes. Budget amendment number 1 passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Clinton Regional Planning Commission report. Councilman Gann.
The Clinton Regional Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals both met and had no active business this month other than discussion of the revisions to the Clinton Downtown District. A lot of discussion. You have in your packet the draft copy of what we've come up with, and in the meeting, it was decided that we submit this to you for your input rather than as a formal presentation, which we're anticipating doing next month, and also to the city attorney for his review. And my understanding is the city attorney has reviewed it and has found no problems with it. Have we set a date for feedback, Roger?
Well, just need to have it in by the middle of next week. If y'all have any feedback, if you please email Jenny Bird at, actually her email is jbird@clintontn.net. Just email if you have any comments, just probably by next Wednesday.
Would it be appropriate if we put what you sent us, put that online? That way, if the public has any questions or input, concerns,
I don't know.
they could do that?
I don't foresee any problems
Or
with
if
that.
nothing else, just let them be informed of what we're going to be voting on.
It was distributed to those in attendance at the last
Yeah.
meeting, but I have no
Maybe.
problem with it going.
That should be okay, shouldn't it? Okay.
So, in a nutshell, Cliff Note version, what is the purpose of this and why?
I think you probably summarize it as saying we're trying to clean up some of the language, and obviously one of the things that has been discussed in both the downtown development and other areas is the allowance of first floor residencies. And that is included in the new downtown district zoning. There's also an overlay section which allows us to extend and move to other areas of town and extend those zoning regulations to these places also. It is in large part, it is an attempt to try to foster and support the idea of downtown development.
So, again, I knew this was kind of coming. I'm not a big codes person, and reading some of this, I did read it. What prompted this? I mean, did this come from was this part of the chamber vision and all that stuff? And, I mean, where did this?
I think there were probably two components to it. We had a request for a downtown residency, which under the current zoning was not legal. We also had the downtown visioning, which included downtown residency and development. It was kind of a perfect storm. They came together at the same time. There had been discussion about it, so that's what generated it.
And one more question. So, how is this going to benefit downtown? I mean, I understand the changes a little bit, what you've talked about, but I mean, I guess, what's this going to accomplish?
I think everybody is anticipating and hopeful that it will generate more activity. Included in this could be any kind of activity that would be in the current Magnet Mills property. That would be included in the downtown business district. It would allow a lot of, and you know, some of the development that we don't currently have.
But it wouldn't be necessary for the magnet mills. I mean, magnet mills could come along, you have site plans as far as housing and things like that. The developer, if there ever was a developer that shows up at the scene that has a site plan, this ground level homes and that type of stuff, I mean,
If it were in the business district, you could not have first floor residencies under
but it's not in the
current-
business district now,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure. Roger, are you sure where Magnet Mills is? I'm not sure whether it's in the business district.
It may still be light industry, I'd have to.
That's what I'm thinking. So you've got some issues there that if that is developed, we're gonna have to deal with as far as residency, which I think most people anticipate will be a part of any magnet mill development.
So is all of this, is this a whole new thing for the, or is, I mean, like, what's changed? A lot of times when you do things change, you have a copy that's got, you know, red lines that's changed and things. Is this whole thing a new?
I think it's more of a revision than anything else. The primary revision being in connection with downtown residencies and putting restrictions on that and connecting it to the historical district, which is already currently in place, and saying anything that happens down there is still going to have to go through the historical district as far as revision, meeting their codes and their guidelines also.
So is there a copy of this that's been red lined out and changes made? I mean, is there such an animal or such a document or not?
I don't. I think we scribbled notes, but other than that, that's.
So the relationship to the historic district is, what's that, what did you say that, is downtown historic?
The downtown historical district already has guidelines about a number of the businesses. For example, I know a recent business had to bring before them their paint colors. There are certain guidelines that the historical district puts in place, and they had to meet those.
So is that historical, I mean, again, I'm just trying to get educated. Has that historical district always been in existence? I mean, it's almost like you've got two different, if you were wanting to have property down there, would you have to go through two different entities?
Yes.
With the historical commission, I don't have their duties right in front of me. Most of theirs is cosmetic stuff.
Well, it looks to me like we would roll all that, would it not be beneficial to a potential developer, potential buyer of property to have all that rolled into one entity?
But I don't think you want cosmetic in your zoning. And cosmetic is what's in the historical district.
You're talking about just the governing body.
Yeah, the governing body. I mean, it's like there's two well, for lack of a better term, there's two hoops to jump through, right?
There are currently.
So if we want to clean things up, why don't we get rid of the hoop?
Well, because you're not going to put cosmetics into zoning. You're not going to say this paint structure is part of zoning.
It's two separate functions.
Okay.
One deals with the buildings itself, one deals,
Homeowners Association.
yes, in many regards.
So you have residential zoning, and then you have a homeowner association that keeps up with exterior.
Okay.
You run into that a lot. I know my son in Nashville couldn't replace the windows he wanted to because he's in the historical district. And that's frequently, and the downtown area is a historical district.
And the historical district is comprised of who? Where does that come from, the mayor? Does that,
We've appointed.
we've appointed those before, right? Okay.
And
We have one here today with
Yeah.
Pam Rainey.
Yeah, okay.
So my understanding, Jim, is in order to further, let's just say, the Clinton vision, this would be a affirmative step into helping implement that vision. As it previously exists, also, my understanding, and I can be wrong, is that this is needed to further develop magnet mills if that gets developed. And so it also allows, you don't want to be so restrictive that it limits a developer's imagination. At the same time, you want to have a certain level of control that it doesn't violate the integrity of your downtown, the spirit and the essence of your downtown. So I think that's what it's attempting to capture and try to get accomplished.
Okay.
I think when this comes back in ordinance form next month, you'll have a little bit clearer view of what particular changes affect what's existing. This is just in draft format right now, so it's a little muddy on what exactly it'll do.
Can I request such a document as that?
That you described as far as the red line and?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we still have one meeting, so there may be changes at that meeting on February the 11th. I
So
believe.
you'll be presenting this to us the first meet,
The following
in
meeting.
February.
I anticipate that we'll, based upon your input and the input at the February 11th meeting, we'll put together.
One thing I read that I just wanted to clarify is as far as new residents on Market Street, residents, I should say. And did you all specify that only new residents can be on the main floor and not existing building?
I think that's the way it is currently, as it is now.
Yeah.
And I think that was primarily a request, as I remember, from the merchants in downtown, of the historical.
Yeah. Well, again, you're opening up a box, but I don't know and again, I'm not a lawyer, maybe you could think about it, or maybe you've already talked about it,
Well, Phil is
can
our-
you say, if you're new, you can, if you're, lack of a better word, old, you can't? Is that legal?
Mr. Cry's already,
He said it is?
he's reviewed it.
Yeah, I would think it's legal. But that's just the law according to Zach. I don't.
Right.
I think there was a strong feeling that we needed to do this with new residences, not existing businesses to be converted into residences.
I think we could also request that our planner come to the council meeting, if y'all would like.
Well, I would like more than this.
That's what
I don't know
I'm
what I want, but I want more than this.
I think he took a hybrid of three
Right.
different cities.
He
and
took
wrote
3
this,
cities.
And with changeover in our codes building office right now, that may be the appropriate thing to do. He could probably answer the questions because he was the one that wrote it, so.
And it'd be nice to know what impact it's had on those three cities. I mean,
So that may be the more appropriate.
I'm just
thing.
hesitant of changing things. I mean,
Right.
I've spoken before. I struggle sometimes when people come in with variances on setbacks. You know, you got a lot that's got a 20-foot setback, and somebody will request it to be knocked down to 5 foot because they're wanting to build some sort of structure. I personally struggle with that because they'll say, well, we went to the neighbor and we got a letter, and the neighbor said, okay, well, the neighbor's going to give you a letter. Otherwise, you're going to hate the neighbor. I just feel like our forefathers somewhere, and again, 2019 is different than whenever these were written in 1900 or 1800, whenever it was, but I just struggle with the fact that we appear a lot of times just to change things just for the sake of change, and our forefathers sought that, and when somebody bought that lot, they knew that it was a 20-foot setback. And if that wasn't going to meet their needs, I hate that we do things like that. Maybe I'm overreacting, but I've always struggled with
I
that.
think if council wishes, if planning commission sends it back to us in ordinance form to pass, that Larry maybe ask for Joe to attend the next council meeting to answer those questions. I think it'd be the more precise way of getting the answers that we
Okay,
need.
thank
If
you.
he does present, if you can ask him to do a PowerPoint form so we can use the technology we have, and also, because there's a lot of people in the crowd I know will be here wanting to see what we're talking about and be able to for them to be involved too.
And I think too, if we could have some, before and after overlays of the zones.
Yeah, that's what Jim was talking about.
So
Yeah.
I think you can conceptually,
Right.
not just the red lines, I think if you can conceptually see what areas are being affected. But, my understanding is Knox County is going through some review of their ordinances as well. I mean, they're spending, 7 figures to go through their codes to say what needs to be updated to reflect reality in 2019. And I think that's a part of it. If you saw, the Gianni's vision, I think that it has a lot of integrity. And I think that, when you look at downtown Franklin, that's a historic community. And they wanted to make sure that they promote it. They wanted to be able to have a Starbucks downtown, but yet maintain that integrity of that, the feeling and the aesthetics. They wanted to be able to have some mixed development, residential growth to push rooftops and younger people and young families and encourage walking and encourage, foot traffic that pushes to the retail. To me, that's what my understanding of it is. And I too want to go over this with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that we don't have, what I'm worried about is unintended consequences.
That's exactly right.
So I want to make sure that we think this through and that we understand that what we have is good. And you're not always going to have a plan for every single, unforeseeable event. But let's make sure that we have our arms around it, I think is what you're driving at.
I think we've sought to be, to work out some plans and some details, but not to be so specific that we strangle ourselves in doing it.
Right.
Any other comments?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to add on to Mr. McBride's concerns. I know we've had a request for the new home there in the gazebo area. Have there been other requests maybe that would settle into the existing stores or the buildings there for living space at the bottom?
Not that I'm aware of. There have been some issues, my understanding, with enforcement. That we have had some circumstances where people were living
On the front.
that
First floor.
enforcement had to deal with.
Well, I was thinking, all I was getting to is maybe building that area up in other sources like you're changing your zoning there. So hopefully that was it, not causing anything. But the new home's kind of what started this.
Right.
Okay. Right.
And the anticipated development of the Magnet Mills project.
Exactly, right.
Have anything else? Thanks, Larry. Clinton Utilities Board report, Councilman Farah. I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Farah.
Okay. That's great.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, is it? That's good. Okay, Clinton Utility Board update. So Chairman Price, Charles Price is spearheading and directing a review of salaries, and we've pulled data from 2 different salary surveys, one provided to the board by TVPPA and another provided by a national utility organization. There are probably flaws, I think it's fair to say. There are some flaws in the salary surveys, and some of our management has pointed out that those are just, in my opinion, they're suggestions, but they do give you an understanding of your left and right lateral limits and what those positions are being paid across the footprint. But it's only those organizations that choose to participate. So we're not getting a true accurate reflection of all the members that are in the TVPPA. So we're getting somewhat of a cherry-picked data of the individuals that want to participate. The reasoning behind this, as I understand it and as I believe it, is to determine potential salary ranges and brackets for the board to consider. I think in order to exercise fiduciary oversight that the board has, we need to understand better these ranges for these positions. Second point, the review of the CUB policies and procedures as they relate to residential development continues. There will be a workshop conducted prior to the February board meeting on the 14th of February at 4:30 in the afternoon at the CUB board space there. Also, we have asked for a legal opinion into any conflict between the city charter or the CUB charter and state law as written in the Tennessee Code annotated as it pertains to board responsibilities and oversight, particularly is there a conflict between general management and their ability to set salaries, or does the board, or does that power lie with the board? And I'm sort of paraphrasing, I think, what we're trying to look at. I believe that there was pointed out at the last board meeting that there was a potential conflict in language. I don't know, as I read our code, it would seem to me that CUB, the board, has an oversight function, and I think that oversight function would flow through the entire operation. I don't know. I thought of it in light of, as city council, you know, Roger, you hire, you fire, you set, salaries, you make those decisions. I don't feel like I'm involved in that, so we're trying to just flesh that out, And I think that it's from a spirit of good faith and fiduciary oversight. We have a great utility. Very proud to be a part of that board. I'm very thankful to be appointed to that board. So this is, again, just an effort to make sure that we are exercising our fiduciary duties properly. I think I announced this last month. I'll announce it again that longtime CUB Assistant General Manager Ernie Bowles had retired, announced his retirement. And last but not least, I want to get this body's opinion. It may not be possible. What is the thought process behind maybe adding board members? Currently, as it stands, you have to be a Clinton City resident to be a board member, as I understand it. But I think that's, to me, that does not represent just the city. There's people outside the city limits that.
CUB services.
Exactly. And so, to me, it would seem to be something for us to consider. Could we add language? And I don't know if we can. I don't know if, that's probably a bill. It's probably a charter question, but look into the possibility of adding, basically representation of ratepayers throughout the system.
I know that's been discussed before over the years, but we can do some research
I
on
think the
that.
charter states that they have to be.
They have to be
I'm
city.
not sure. We can
City
research that and get back with you.
If it's a charter issue, does that change it?
It's only by the voters. Because you said CUB has a charter. Do they have their own charter or bylaws?
Well, I'm referring to Title 18 and what Bill's thumbing through right now.
I didn't know if they had their own set of bylaws or something.
Not that I know of.
What
But-
legal entity rules on the
It was pointed out in the last board meeting that that the Tennessee Code Annotated provided management with certain functions, and that any conflict between the TCA and our charter, that Tennessee Code Annotated overrules it.
Yes.
So we've asked CUB's counsel at Kennerly Montgomery to render us a legal opinion, but again, I think that's something that this body needs to be aware of. I don't know if you watch every CUB meeting. Along those lines, all this is positive in nature. I feel like, again, it's an extremely well-run organization. We have great management. We have great workers. Couldn't be more proud of being involved with an organization. It's just, I think it's good. I think it's healthy to have robust discussion and oversight from your board. And any questions? That's my report.
Any questions for Zach? I agree, Zach. I think CUB is a very well-run organization. Don't agree with everything they do. I'm really interested in seeing how this look into the development of residential is going to play out. I think doing nothing is, if we do nothing, that's not really an option in my mind. I think there's some things that we're lacking on that we could be more competitive. Not to take anything away from Greg and staff, but I just think we really need to take a look and see how we can be more competitive in that regard. So I appreciate it. Larry, you have anything else?
I was just thinking about that.
Under other boards and, are you the
Right.
CUB or other boards and
Green
committees?
McAdoo.
Okay.
Saturday at 5 o'clock, they will be showing a film in the Green McAdoo Legacy Room, The American South as We Know It, which dealt with African Americans during the Jim Crow era. Frederick Murphy, who is the director, producer of this film, will be there, and there will be a question and answer period following the film. And they're looking for a good crowd. This is part of Black History Month. The American South as We Know It, and the film itself, I think, is about an hour long. Saturday at 5 at Green McAdoo in the Legacy Room.
Thanks, Larry. General Government Report, Mr. Houck.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a second. Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with previous approved practices of the council, I respectfully request authorization to file for various grant funds to the state and federal government and other agencies. This would include, but not limited to, funds for building renovations, water and sewer improvements, drainage improvements, and funding for additional employees and equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for information purposes, if we don't see movement on the demolition, probably within the next 2 weeks on the demolition of the Magnet Mills building that's under our slum ordinance, we plan on going ahead and going back to our engineering firm and requesting they begin the RFP, to prepare the RFP, request for proposal for the demolition of it. Right now, as per the slum ordinance, they have to March 20th to begin the demolition of it. Right now, they've not done anything, so we're kind of in the whole process. We'd started, as you remember, we had started the RFP. They picked up their demo permit, so we put our engineer on hold on it. Be a pretty simple process. The Phase 2 environmental was done when we did it previously a few years ago on the other. So we'll have him prepare the request for proposal. If they don't start demolition by March 20th, soon after that, whenever we can get it in the newspaper, put it on our website. March 21st, we'll get it on our website. We'll put that out there for our demolition of that building and proceed on with it. Once we get those prices in, I'm sure that will be over the $25,000 limit. I can have it, so we'll bring it back to council for approval to proceed on with it. That's kind of the plan.
So you won't even proceed with the RFP until the 21st of March?
Now, we can't.
But
Can you
I'm
not-
talking about to get it.
Can we already have those
No,
proposals, and can we,
He's saying go ahead and get the proposals
Yes.
now.
and
I mean, we
Yeah.
probably,
we flip the switch on the 21st?
I don't know if we could advertise it before that.
oh no, I can check on it though.
If we-
That may be
But
a
we have
good
everything
question.
in, we have it. well,
We can have the package ready, and that's what we
Right.
did last
That's
time.
what
We
you-
had
I
it
thought
ready
that's
to
what
go
you-
But
out.
even if you give them,
Ready.
but if you give them the packet, how long do you have to give them to get back the,
Probably not 10 days, not long.
I think
It
we
wouldn't
just need
take
to be
long.
prepared for more delay tactics, whether
Yeah.
it's a new buyer or
I don't know if
maybe
you
a couple
need to
bricks or something.
I'd make that an item on the February meeting to 10 days out to send that out for bid.
Just saying be as efficient as you can.
We could look at that, because we
Absolutely.
meet on the 25th. I don't know if we could send it out early.
Well, again, we could talk about that in February to execute that to do it on the
If you
15th.
can send it out early and already have it back,
Right.
it may be in vain.
We
They
could
may
possibly do
move.
that.
We
And
can
they may
check
take
with
care
our
of it.
engineers and see what the legalities are on that, because there may
Yeah.
be something we're not seeing.
Okay?
We can check on that, we could possibly do that.
What I would think is, we need to have the wrecking ball in place and,
It's parked at the community center on the 20th.
Well, what I'm
And it's
thinking
moved
is,
there on the 21st.
well, yeah, I mean, because what I envision, what I'm afraid of is we get behind and guess what? Some brick gets moved and then they're in the process of demo and we're dealing with a bad faith situation.
From the beginning,
Correct. So, I mean, whatever we can do.
well, what we could probably do is ask this question, their deadline's March 20th, if we just send out the RFPs and have the deadline for the 21st, that way if they haven't started, the deadline they haven't turned in is the 21st, and we bring them to council the 25th for approval.
That would work.
Yeah, I think that was,
Send it out March 10th.
yeah.
But my only question is, if we could, I think what Jim's trying to say is, we did earlier, so on the 21st, we're ready to go. You
Gotta have
can't do
council
that?
approval.
Council approval
I'll
for
have a
what?
special call council meeting.
Demo
For the
costs.
the cost? Well, why don't we go ahead and put it out, so we'll have it for the February meeting?
If we can get it done that quick.
We'll have a special call.
Yeah,
council
can
meeting.
we call?
We'll adjourn, can we adjourn the February council meeting and, or not adjourn it, we'll go in recess? Can we recess February council meeting and then come back in?
We need to consult with our engineer before we get too far ahead.
Yeah, let us
Well,
look at all of it. We can talk
You
about
know
it.
the intent.
Yeah.
And
But if
if
we
we don't
don't
like
make a
what the engineer,
decision-
if we don't like what the engineer says, let's
Well,
ask another.
regardless, if they haven't started by March 20th, we can move, even if they move in March 21st, they're in violation of the slum ordinance.
But if they're still, well, if they're moving in and start tearing it down on the 21st, then that's fine.
We're gonna move in with them.
No, we won't be able to do that. As long as they're making, no, it's just like last time, they came in, as long as they're making progress tearing it
But their
down.
deadline was the 20th.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
We
think,
move in first, we're there at midnight. We're at 12:01.
We'll send Cecil over there on.
I think,
Take
but we
take
do-
a sledgehammer, and just hit a brick every
But we
30 minutes
need-
until daylight comes.
do we need to give you direction as far as if after you do talk to the engineers, to go ahead and put out the packet?
I think you've already did that. I think a couple of years ago, you gave me pretty much
Okay.
authorization to move forward, so I think we're
Alright,
good.
man,
We'll
it
just-
started.
We'll proceed on and have you smash it.
You let us know what we need to do in
Yeah.
February to get what our intent
Right.
is, or I think the majority of our intent
I
is.
think, yeah, we'll get some answers.
Okay.
Okay.
Roger, what came about of, the December 31st? If you mentioned it, I don't know.
They made their $21,000 payment to Tom Dickerson, and emailed the check to us. We got it the other day. The email from their attorney to our attorney was they still have the intent of selling the building, that it's just, for whatever reason, been delayed. So, you know,
So
there's
if
really
all,
nothing we can do on that as long as they're making their payment, but we're proceeding on.
do they owe us
Yeah.
any more? Is it
42,000.
One more payment or two more payments?
Two more, 42,000 still.
And that,
Was the payment late?
I think it was a little bit late to Tom Dickerson, yes.
Okay.
next one will be too.
When's the next one due?
That I don't
And
know.
it quarterly?
All due at the end of the month, in quarter.
Is it quarter, so it'll be the end of March?
Yes,
Probably.
I think so.
Finance, I'll defer to Gail.
Sales tax this month was up just a little bit. Year-to-date, or excuse me, it was down a little bit this month. Year-to-date, we're up a little less than 2%. County this month was down for the year. They're at like 6.5%. So if you remember last month, they were up about 10%. This month, they're down 10%. So sometimes it's a timing, sometimes it's a correction issue. So revenues and expenditures, everything looks good. I won't bore you with any more finance tonight on that. In regards to the audit, if you want to start reading something, I tell you to read the table of contents and look for something particular that you're looking for. The statistical section that I do that has the 10 years probably will tell you as much information as you want to know. You can see the fund balance back 10 years and see where you've come in 10 years from a negative fund balance.
What page is that on?
Yeah, where can I find it?
Look at their table of contents. She said.
Oh,
Page number, baby.
Page one.
Hey,
It's 3 pages.
hey, Brian, we're about to switch you and Dan over.
We moved his seat, and he thinks he's up there.
He's too far away, he's getting cocky now.
Yeah, he thinks he's sitting with them over there. so, yeah.
I'm just vice mayor, no respect at all.
We said he was getting closer to the smart section. That's on page 140.
Thank you,
All right,
Bill.
here we go.
Thank you.
It's
Sorry, Brian.
also got your principal taxpayers. I go to the effort of actually combining all properties that are owned by any entity. So it gives you a look of who our principal taxpayers are, so it helps you also to see, for instance, if you lose a particular entity, what that does to our tax base. We do a lot of demographics. We also do the primary 10 employers in the city, or we try to. And when we do that, we look back 10 years ago and look back at current date. We put all of our rates in, and then we also have some information as far as operating indicators, how many arrests we made, how many fire calls we made, and again, we do all that for a 10-year span. So I think it really helps you look at some differences in where the city's been and where we're at now. So to me, those really stand out as something that you may want to take a look at. The only other thing is the Gatsby 75, and, you know, we told you with the pension plan, it's on the government-wide, and it really, we look at everything fund balance-wise. But it was about a $1.7 million adjustment, and a lot of that for, you know, with these 2 state plans with the school system, those are closed plans. So I think I'm right in saying that no new teacher is allowed that OPEB. So there's a closed plans. With us, with the city, if you remember, you started giving a benefit to retirees to help pay for those. So that's what's triggered us into OPEB. And when we say 1.7 million, the city's alone was about 600,000, and that sounds like a lot of money. And of course, we don't put that in a trust. I budget for what I know is happening within the city of retirees. But a lot of that is an implicit rate, meaning those of you, I know we've got several that's in the healthcare industry. In other words, they look at the number they expect to take advantage of that and what that has on the rates of the plan, because you have retirees, which means they're usually from 60 to 65. We drop coverage at 65, and what that does to the rates as a whole. And I suspect that's a lot of what that 600,000 is. But it really doesn't have any effect except to make our government-wide statements not look as good as what they did. So if you look at a dip, that's what that dip is. So.
Any questions? Any other questions for Gail? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Gil. Under the police department, surplus property, K-9 Mozzie has been taken out of service due to health issues. Mozzie is a 10-year-old German Shepherd with 8 years of service to the police department. In keeping with past practices, I would recommend that Mozzie be retired and declared surplus, and then be given to his former handler, Stephen Queener, for future care.
Hear a motion for approval?
So moved. Second.
A motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Will there be a replacement
I think so.
Not at this time, but
eventually?
How many dogs do we have right now?
we have 2 canines. One's patrol, narcotics, the other one's a bomb dog.
Okay. Anything else?
I have mine.
Any questions for Roger?
So this is one of the 2, or there's 2
No,
remaining?
there's 2 left.
So we have 2 left.
Oh.
We had 3.
3.
Any questions for Roger? Thanks, Roger. Under second and final readings of ordinances, I'm sorry, I think when I had the public hearing, I said this is the first reading. This is actual second reading. Ordinance number 637, this is a zoning ordinance amendments, private access, easements, and public right-of-ways. Hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Yes.
Councilman McBride?
Yes.
Councilman Harrell?
Yes.
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Yes.
Councilman Farron?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes, ordinance number 637 passes on second and final reading. On ordinance number 638, this is rezoning B2 to R2. This is located at North Charles G. Severs Boulevard at Alpine Drive. Hear a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gann?
Yes.
Councilman McBride?
Yes.
Councilman Harrell?
Yes.
Councilman Stamey?
Yes.
Councilman Hatmaker?
Yes.
Councilman Farron?
Yes.
Mayor Burton?
Yes, ordinance number 638 passes on second and final reading. Any old business before us?
Roger, just on the bridge, looks like everything's going well in the updates. I know it's a multi-year process.
Everything's going good. They had a pretty major concrete pour scheduled for Wednesday, Thursday. Last week was too cold, so they actually did it this morning. I think everything was good with it. I think everything's moving along pretty good with the reports that we're getting.
So no work stoppages due to the government shutdown?
No, I think, moving on.
I like the bike lane thing you talked about too. It'd be a shame to not have that accessible and safe
Right.
with what's maybe coming in the future.
So,
Any other old business? Only thing I was gonna remind the council, we talked about when we bought our ladder truck, any excess revenue that we get, we can apply it towards that. Now, we've done this now with Magnet Mills, the fines, the owners of Magnet Mills, and it's starting to, I guess when we get the final two payments, it's gonna be close to $100,000. I think it's like 94,000 or something like that. And so I really would urge the council at that time to put at least a percentage of that money towards paying down the fire truck and just be diligent like we have in the past. Just a reminder there. Any new business?
Yes, I've been asked a couple times, Industrial Park and everything up around my end of town, a paving schedule. Have you got a paving schedule put out yet, or?
No, not really right now.
Okay. Could us get a copy of maybe the schedule that you do have? People ask all the time whether the street's gonna get paved, so.
Can you have that next month?
I think some of the paving that we had approved in the fall, we're still waiting on Rogers Group to do it, so that's, I think they're behind a little bit.
They
I
are
think the
behind.
park's been prepped, the lower end of it.
Is it too cold
Since
now?
September.
Yeah, it's too cold now.
Well, they did it, they did this last year. We prepped some of the stuff, and it was spring before they got to us, so they're just running behind.
Well, don't the plants shut
They do
down?
some of them, yeah, depending on the weather and the
Okay.
fuel.
You'll be able to get that to us next month? Something. Well, it'd be nice to also just communicate that, but also maybe even put it in the paper, so we'll let the residents know how it's going to affect them in 2019. Appreciate that. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
He's adjourned.